Today we're going to be talking about The Name of the Rose, a fictional autobiography by Umberto Eco set in 1327. The book is set in a wealthy Italian abbey, and a string of strange death plagues begin to happen. Brother William of Baskerville is called to unravel this mystery. The action takes place in Italy in the beginning of the 10th century, and it takes place over the course of 5 days. In this 14th century thriller, every death exposes a new piece of an age-old conspiracy. William's job is to collect evidence with his assistant Adzo at hand. The story is told from Adzo's first-person, limited and subjective point of view. They take us on a journey deciphering things like secret symbols and coded manuscripts, and dig deep into the eerie labyrinth of the abbey where extraordinary things begin to happen. With certain dangerous facts being discovered and with the possibility of influential characters' secrets being exposed, the future of the Catholic Church hangs in the balance. The tone and mood of this book is both tragic, violent, and also a bit regretful. The protagonists are William and Adzo, and the antagonist is Jorge. The major conflict is the result of William's thirst for knowledge and the monk's conviction that knowledge should be hidden from everyone. Essentially, the story reaches its climax when the abbey is burned to the ground. There's also a certain foreshadowing present at the beginning of the novel. The images Adzo sees on the first door he goes through foreshadow the horrors he will see inside the abbey. The story begins with William and Adzo travelling to the abbey a few days early to prepare for the meeting. But on their arrival, they learn some troubling news. They're told one night earlier a monk plummeted to his death from the tallest building in the abbey. Over the next several days, more strange and horrible deaths transpire, and so the stakes become pretty clear. William must solve this mystery before the Pope's delegation arrives. Otherwise, foul play will be suspected and the meeting will be for naught. The future of the Franciscan order really depends on William's mystery-solving skills. One of the ideas alluded to in the novel is the fact that it is hard to make a difference between who is a heretic and who is a simple man. Both William and Adzo believe this and think that the difference is important only for the religious leaders who use the claim of hearsay to get rid of those they do not like and of those who do not agree with them. An important image appears at the end of the book, when Adzo thinks about his life and about what he had done after the abbey burnt to the ground. Adzo remembers that he returned to the abbey and tried to recover some of the burnt manuscripts, and that he continued to study those manuscripts for the rest of his life. The image of the burnt passages is important because it shows that Adzo was influenced by the time he spent with William, and that he became interested in knowledge just as his old master once was. The paradox in the novel is the fact that while initially the librarians tried to preserve the precious knowledge in the books by not allowing anyone to touch them, however, in the end they contributed to the destruction of the said knowledge through their protective attitude. The narrator draws parallels between William and the rest of the monks who did everything they could to hide the truth, and to hide the true nature of the books they were trying to keep secret. While the monks believed that William's obsession was almost destructive, they ignored the destructiveness of their own behaviour, and in the end they all had to pay the price of their actions. The Name of the Rose is quite plodding and extremely complex. It is not only a narrative of a murder investigation, but an astonishing chronicle of the Middle Ages. However, it doesn't have the fast pace of a murder mystery, and that's because it's much more of a historical novel. Its first priority, far above entertaining the reader or advancing the plot, is to situate itself perfectly in history, to merge itself so cleanly with the past that the reader can't see the seams. Personally, I really enjoyed this book overall. It was incredibly factual and I did learn a lot. However, there were some parts that I found extremely slow and hard to interpret. I would like to read it again, but this time I need to do some research on the 14th century, the Franciscan order, and also my knowledge of Latin. The book does keep you guessing at every page. I feel as if it's a kind of novel that changes our perception and replaces our reality with its own. One piece of advice I would give to you before you read this book, unless you already have a broad understanding of Latin, is to make sure that you purchase the version that has the explanation of all the Latin terms in the back of the book. The first time I had to spend a lot of time on Google to find out the translation and make my own interpretations, when towards the end I found out you could actually purchase the version that has the terminology in the back. I did feel like the book dragged sometimes, just when you thought it was getting interesting, just when the plot is getting meatier and it grabs your attention. There comes a dissertation or a long-drawn description of doors, churches, parchments, beasts, or characters that are totally irrelevant to the plot, and backstories that do nothing to shed light on the events for pages and pages. You must often wait a chapter or two to get back to the mystery that drove you to read this thing in the first place. Although I can understand from the author's perspective, with a murder mystery, they need to do that because otherwise it would just be too simple, wouldn't it? Some of the characters often appear very dry, but the plot is very neat itself. Almost like, I think, an Agatha Christie text or Conan Doyle. Some of the characters' dialogue really makes you think, and I enjoyed that part. I actually took a notebook and wrote down some of my favourite quotations, a lot of them still being relevant today. For example, I'll leave you with one of my favourite quotes from William. Because learning does not consist only of knowing what we must or we can do, but also of knowing what we could do and perhaps should not do.